Chapter 1 of A Chronicle of Montcalm. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Chronicle of Montcalm by William Wood. Chapter 1. Montcalm in France, 1712 to 1756. War is the grave of the Montcalms. No one can tell how old this famous saying is. Perhaps it is as old as France herself. Certainly there never was a time when the men of the great family of Montcalm-Gozon were not ready to fight for their king and country, and so Montcalm, like Wolfe, was a soldier born. Even in the Crusades his ancestors were famous all over Europe. When the Christians of those brave days were trying to drive the unbelievers out of Palestine, they gladly followed leaders whom they thought saintly and heroic enough to be their champions against the dragons of Sultan, Satan, and Hell. For people then believed that dragons fought on the devil's side, and that only Christian knights, like St. George, fighting on God's side, could kill them. The Christians banded themselves together in many ways, among others in the order of the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, taking an oath to be faithful unto death. They chose the best man among them to be their Grand Master, and so it could have been only after much devoted service that Deodat de Gozon became Grand Master, more than 500 years ago, and was granted the right of bearing the conquered dragon of Rhodes on the family coat of arms, where it is still to be seen. How often this glorious badge of victory reminded our own Montcalm of noble deeds and noble men! How often it nerved him to uphold the family tradition! There are centuries of change between Crusaders and Canadians, yet the Montcalms can bridge them with their honour. And among all the Montcalms who made their name mean soldiers' honour in Eastern or European war, none have given it so high a place in the world's history as the hero whose life and death in Canada made it immortal. He won the supreme glory for his name, a glory so bright that it shone even through the dust of death which shrouded the France of the Revolution. In 1790, when the National Assembly was suppressing pensions granted by the Crown, it made a special exception in favour of Montcalm's children. As kings, marquises, heirs, and pensions were among the things the Revolution hated most, it is a noble tribute to our Marquis of Montcalm that the revolutionary Parliament should have paid to his heirs the pension granted by a king. Nor has another century of change in France blotted out his name and fame. The Montcalm was the French flagship at the Naval Review held in honour of the coronation of King Edward VII. The Montcalm took the President of France to greet his ally, the Tsar of Russia. And, but for a call of duty elsewhere at the time, the Montcalm would have flown the French Admiral's flag in 1908, at the celebration of the tercentenary of the founding of Quebec, when King George V led the French and English-speaking peoples of the world in doing honour to the twin renown of Wolfe and Montcalm on the field where they won equal glory, though unequal fortune. Montcalm was a leap-year baby, having been born on February 29, 1712, in the family castle of Candiac, near Nîmes, a very old city in the south of France, a city with many forts built by the Romans 2,000 years ago. He came by almost as much good soldier blood on his mother's side as on his father's, for she was the one of the Castellans, with numbers of heroic ancestors extending back to the First Crusade. The Montcalms had never been rich. They had had many heroes but no millionaires. Yet they were well known and well loved for their kindness to all the people on their estates, and so generous to everyone in trouble, and so ready to spend their money as well as their lives for the sake of king and country, that they never could have made great fortunes, even had their estate been 10 times as large as it was. Accordingly, while they were famous and honoured all over France, they had to be very careful about spending money on themselves. They all, and our own Montcalm in particular, spent much more in serving their country than their country ever spent in paying them to serve it. Montcalm was a delicate little boy of 6 when he first went to school. He had many schoolboy faults. He found it hard to keep quiet, or to pay attention to his teacher. He was backward in French grammar, and he wrote a very bad hand. Many a letter of complaint was sent to his father. "It seems to me," writes the teacher, "that his handwriting is getting worse than ever. I show him again and again how to hold his pen, but he will not do it properly. I think he ought to try to make up for his want of cleverness by being more docile, taking more pains, and listening to my advice. And then, poor old
Sample complete. Ready to continue?